new lines.
It's quite all right. I'll go ahead and launch it.
Alrighty, let's do it.
Let's see if we get skip it, pap.
Hang on, I should probably make my bed slightly, or I'll just turn my camera.
Yeah,
That's the solution.
or I can. Yeah.
Nope, there you go. Perfect.
Wunderbar. Man. Wait, what you eat?
Water.
Water. Man. Mm-mm-mm.
No, just trying to down a hot dog slightly after my 10 minutes beyond when I'm supposed to stop eating.
All right, intermittent fasting. It's been a good day.
Q ice cube.
Bow, wow, bow, bow. Bow,
After
bow,
listening to it so many times, now I can only the only one I remember, or it plays in my head every time I hear the song is the KK Slider mashup. You know what I'm talking about?
KK Slider mash.
Hold up, I got you. It slaps.
While Steve is pulling that up, so y'all have probably read the description. What we're going to be talking about tonight. What I put on the. Ooh, let's see the link. Yeah, I'll check that out. Check that out later. I gave a video warning of what was going to happen later in the show on the Facebook page. You probably can't see that on YouTube or Twitch, but so for folks that are joining us on Twitch or Twitch or YouTube and didn't see that on Facebook, obviously you can see the description. So we'll still do our normal news segments, go through our normal progression like the quick hits, game time, stuff like that, and then we'll give you a heads up. We're getting ready to get into the main topic tonight. Just that way,
if you want to opt out,
if you want to opt out, we're not going to be hurt. We'll be okay. And we're also going to try there's a lot of descriptions we could say. You probably will not bring those up on air unless they're entirely very relevant, if we really feel a need to say them, because we can give you show notes so that you can dive into this more yourself and it's kind of take that at your pace if you want to read on it.
It's some heavy stuff, which for some audience members may be triggering, so we want to make sure that we don't unnecessarily put out triggering information, or at the very least, if we are going to talk about it, we'll let you know ahead of time, which we will do once we get into that segment. So we want to put that up front, that the rest of the show is going to be the rest of the show is reggy-deggy stuff like the news that happens on the normal, but towards the end of the show it will get a bit heavier, so just a heads up.
All right, so let's get started with quick hits. And surprisingly, the movie that won the weekend was M. Night Shyamalan's Old, which features a story of if you join this mysterious magical beach, you're losing time off of your life. Beat out Space Jam, but Space Jam had already been out for a week. The new debut of Snake Eyes, so kind of like the soft G.I. Joe reboot / prequel film, also beat that out by about 16 million in ticket sales. And it's also kind of spawned some memes. So with this next...
As things often do.
So this is from Mr. Bean's stunt double / or at Mustache Dad on Twitter. Said Paul Rudd when he gets to the beach in Old versus when Paul Rudd leaves the beach a few days later. So a lot of people are taking the joke about folks that don't age at all, or folks that have progressively looked worse as they age. I'm not sure how to feel about some of these memes. So it can be a little harsh, a little mean. But yeah. Do you plan on seeing it?
You know me, I hate looking at things.
Yeah, I didn't I just put it out there. I didn't think this.
But another quick hit. Ted Lasso is Apple TV's #1 show after coming out this past Friday. So the massive Emmy-nominated wholesome show of an American football coach who learns how to coach football was already their top show and dominating, which led up to this last week's premiere as people watched the last season. Have you seen this show?
Yeah, it's worth the hype. It's kind of, but it's not. Yeah, it's not surprising that it's Apple's #1 show, and it's not a knock on Apple, but they just don't really have anything else out. And it's not that the other shows aren't good. I'm just saying they don't really. Now, if this was like Netflix saying it, that'd be different. It's like, oh yeah, you got a smorgasbord of things for people to choose from. So for this to rise to the top, cool, got it. For Apple, it's still an achievement. It's just not as big of a. Got to put a little context to it, but it is really good.
Yeah, it's not as big of a platform. So saying it's the biggest fish in the pond, well, it makes you ask, oh, how big's the pond? But still, like, if it's a good show and people are enjoying it, and then right on.
Yeah. Another show that's coming back. So America's favorite murdering detective, Dexter, which aired on the first 8 seasons aired on Showtime. This upcoming 9th season will also air on Showtime. Has a release date of Sunday, November 7th. And as far as we understand, because of being on Showtime, those are released sequentially, just like any other Showtime show, like Billions and so on and so forth. So if you've gotten used to watching the streaming versions of it, since it's already been out, prepare yourself for going back to the week schedule.
Yay!
A lot of people did not like the last season of Dexter. It's been a long time since I remember watching any of it, so my memory is pretty fuzzy. I don't even know if I finished it. So there's a little bit of public hesitancy about, like, do we even want another season of this?
Yeah,
but we shall see.
I mean, personally, I don't really care for Dexter. He never spends any time in his lab anymore, so I'm not even interested.
Where's Dee Dee to chill him out when you need it? All right.
Alrighty. Moving into the cinephiles. I'm not sure how I feel about this one, but I'm just gonna read it. There's a live-action Pokemon series heading for Netflix. Joe Henderson from Lucifer is set as a showrunner. Sources say that the project would be a live-action series similar to Detective Pikachu, which had Ryan Reynolds in it, and Justice Smith that came out back in 2019. That's kind of promising, but I feel like it's not gonna have Detective Pikachu style quality or degree of quality, because I really enjoyed that, but I'll save my reservations. Excuse me. The move to develop an original Netflix Pokemon series comes as the streaming service has made itself home to multiple existing Pokemon shows, including the Pokemon Indigo League, Pokemon Journeys, as well as a whole bunch of other ones. They've also been making a strong push in the anime for the recent years. Folks who have been watching, I think it's Attack on Titans on Netflix, right. Castlevania, fantastic series. Death Note. Whole bunch of stuff's been coming out for anime. I remember quite a while ago, I was like, oh wow, they got anime on here, hell yeah. Having previously announced the original series based on Far Cry, Splinter Cell and Terminator, Netflix has been moving into more of a live action adaptation of animes as well, including Cowboy Bebop and One Piece live action shows. We'll see how those go. Cowboy Bebop could be good. I feel like One Piece probably won't translate well.
Yeah. I'm really excited for the Cowboy Bebop just because of everyone they pulled together for it. But yeah, they've had some issues since the injury happened.
Yep.
But yeah, to your point, Detective, I know a lot of people like the Sonic movie, and it is a lot better than I thought.
Sonic movie was good. It was good.
I need to watch Werewolves of N to see how it stacks up, because technically but to me, I also don't feel like that's a hard video game adaptation, because you can just make a story about people trying to figure out who's the werewolf is. So that's not even really a novel concept for a game. It's like that's
it really isn't. It's just Mafia, but a TV show.
Exactly. So I would argue, like,
Mhm.
again, maybe I need to rewatch Sonic, but I would argue Detective Pikachu is probably the best video game adaptation
Of recent time or ever.
I almost feel like, are you going to talk about is Mortal Kombat coming in this conversation? Is that what's
a couple of things, Mortal Kombat inclusive, but yes.
So the nostalgia factor for me with Mortal Kombat, and like thinking about the era, like because I don't try to compare it to stuff today, because it's like that's not fair to that Mortal Kombat to like it did what it, yeah. And obviously there's still movies that are made during a time period that are absolute trash. So like Super Mario or Mario Brothers and like Street Fighter, we don't talk about those.
There's some good moments. Like, there's some good moments.
Good moments, but generally we're just like, I have no desire to go rewatch that. Whereas like if someone's like, hey, we're gonna watch Mortal Kombat the movie, I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Also, brief footnote. Fun fact. As we all know, Street Fighter the movie is based off of Street Fighter the game, but there is also a video game based on Street Fighter the movie. Basically, when it came out, they were like, "Oh man, you know, what was it? I think it was like Killer Instinct or whatever it was, had the visuals of people or it was Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat did the live action capturing frame by frame of real people, and they were like, we want to do the same thing, so they did that with like a garbage Street Fighter game. But all that aside, getting back to their anime representations, I don't know. There's some stuff that I feel like could work well. I mean, like Cowboy Bebop is essentially Firefly, but with like like a color filter on over the camera. It's blue shifted instead of yellow shifted. One Piece, if it's done to the quality and style of Rurouni Kenshin, I feel like it could work. But I feel like it might be like if they do it more towards the style of like Kamen Rider in terms of cheesy / hokiness. Like I'm like I wouldn't really be interested, but it might not be for me if they do it like that. If they go the cheese route, I'm not the target audience. So in addition to his work on Lucifer, Henderson is currently developing a series adaptation of Shadecraft at Netflix, which was announced back in March. Henderson penned the comic, working alongside artist Lee Garbett. Is that right? Yes, Garbett. Yeah. Henderson is also co-writing the pilot of that project with Georgia Lee, with also both of them executive producing. And Garbett will be the, I guess, head producer or the producer.
I guess all three of them will be producing.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah, so we'll keep you notified on that. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Chat, what's your opinion on live action adaptations of things that you didn't necessarily ask for?
Like Transformers showed meant to sell toys.
I mean, basically every cartoon was made to sell toys.
I mean, yeah, but like some are more blatant.
True.
Like there's like Hasbro making a show, and it's like, wow, But then sometimes you get some good shows, like Beast Wars. I'd argue Beast Wars is really solid.
Beast Wars is good. Beast Wars slaps.
Something that's probably gonna slap, but we don't know. Jordan Peele has announced his latest movie called Nope, starring Daniel Kaluuya, Keke Palmer, and Steven Yeun. And some people have speculated that maybe it's a spinoff from Get Out. Is it just referring to Black people's general disdain towards particular actions of like, nope, I'm not doing that.
Yep, that's my guess. I think it's gonna be like, set up as like a horror comedy where it's like, they see some shit and it's like some folks are like, oh, let's go investigate. It's like, nah, I'm good. And just go over and it's like romantic comedy or something over there.
Yeah. So personally, I am wondering, is he going to keep sticking with horror? And it's not a knock on him if he is doing horror. I'm kind of curious what other genres he wants to get into. But maybe that's just what he really feels. Maybe he feels like that medium can really communicate. Some people also noted that, or they kept saying that the banner or the bunting is that like that trail that you because you see the cloud in the. So I'll go back to the first photo. All right, you kind of see that cloud in the middle, and there's that tail coming off the end of it.
Yep.
And people keep talking about that trailing cable and keep making a Great British Bake Off reference to it. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know.
I feel like you going to pulling a muscle reaching for that stretch.
Yeah, it's like there might be some hidden message or like some key detail in here that we don't understand yet, but that just doesn't seem like. Well, but maybe if it is cool, but it seems like we're getting to WandaVision reaches over here.
Yeah, for real. Don't hurt yourselves, y'all.
Don't hurt yourself.
Let me see. Here we go. So Kirsten Bell takes over as Marge Simpson's singing voice. So the Simpsons' 33rd season premiere will feature Bell taking over as Julia Kavner's singing duties, though she'll still voice Marge in the episode as the show prepares a huge musical debut.
Wow.
33 seasons, man.
Yeah, that kind of. There's no knock to Kristen Bell. That kind of overshadows the musical. No,
yeah.
It's like, good Lord.
Although, so one thing it could be, how to describe. So one thing that with the singing debut musical razzmatazz, one thing that we might see the Simpsons doing, like not that I don't know who's watching The Simpsons these days. I assume it's youths and people who really, really like The Simpsons and always have.
Youths.
But one thing we might see them doing is moving towards more of a larger musical production, which is something that I feel like has helped Family Guy stand out from The Simpsons. Is when they do a musical gag. Because what's his name? Seth MacFarlane is a singer and a theater person or whatever. They don't have to do it. Where it's just like it's like, okay, we're gonna pay one guy who can play 3 instruments, and we'll just record him one time. We'll just record him each for each thing or whatever, and we'll do that and whatever. You got a piano, like an upright bass, and we play saxophone, and that'll be the song. They do a whole thing. And not to say like, The Simpsons hasn't had catchy tunes in the past, but like, Family Guy has their own orchestra.
Beats like pretty much beats them in it.
Yeah, they have a standing orchestra that they use for the show, which is a commitment. So maybe the Simpsons might not move to doing that kind of thing. Because it does give Family Guy like a very distinct vibe. Like you can like when a scene changes and a sound plays, like like, oh, that one's Family Guy. Like, oh, maybe that one's The Simpsons, that's the Flintstones, that one's Family Guy. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're kind of leaning towards like, hey man, we got 33 seasons. Let's change it up. Let's do something like new and interesting with the music. I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant. I feel like a lot of television. Like kind of shortcuts their musical production. One that was really impactful for a lot of people, which they probably didn't realize, is there, or maybe you did, because I'll say is when you think back to your youth, you can pull out probably a lot of the instances of programs that had really interesting or meaningful programming. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, for example, like they Mr. Rogers wrote the song that is featured in the beginning. But he would have different musicians play it, and he had, I think, like Billy Taylor and other like jazz, like popular jazz musicians at the time do their own take of the intro, and they didn't quote unquote dumb it down for kids, because his thing was like, why should you like. They like music, so like you have like these jazz virtuosos doing their thing with Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. If you look back to what was the other show I had on the tip of my tongue? Hey Arnold. Amazing jazz music. And like, when you think back to some of those songs, if you go back and you listen to like the Hey Arnold like soundtrack, there's a version on YouTube that was put together by a fan to kind of collect a lot of their music. Go listen to it, it's really great. But when you go back and listen to it, like, oh wow, I did kind of gain a taste for jazz just from watching Hey Arnold, and like, you probably a couple of other shows here and there. But like for the shows that really, put thought into their music production, like it really comes through. So minor little rant there, but yeah.
It's good. That reminds me of a blues conversation. I'll have to. I started one about blues interludes that people were using a bunch in the like late '80s and '90s. That I thought like for our dance scene might have been some of the influence on why people will gravitate to it, because it's like you've heard this even if you didn't hear full blues songs, you heard some of these licks over and over and over again, just in some of your favorite shows.
But I didn't damn bop.
They're like, hey, we need a lick in between this scene. All right. Cool.
All right.
Now it's time for game time.
Bill.
Got that. Sorry, Marge. Didn't mean to skip your photo there.
Oopsies.
Spotted on a Russian retail site, videolgr.net, which
.net.
Everything you need to know. But a recent listing was discovered for Darksiders free, which is the third installment. So this has been out for a little bit. Made by THQ Nordic. And you currently play this on like your PS4, Xbox One, PC. But the listing was for the Nintendo Switch. This listing was promptly taken down after like being up for a couple hours. So most likely it was a leak that we are going to get a Darksiders free release on the Switch, which makes a lot of sense because they've already been porting the other Darksiders games onto the Switch as we speak. The rumored launch date for that was September 30th, 2021. So that would be this year, if that ends up holding true.
Nice. Let's see. So this includes me, some video, Score, some video game magazines from the Video Game History Foundation. So retro gaming fans will be delighted to learn that the Video Game History Foundation is now offering mystery packs that will feature vintage gaming magazines for your collection. With the entire library spanning from the early 80s all the way through the 2010s, the blind bag houses a ton of surprises that the most diehard gaming enthusiasts will appreciate. Hey, that's us. To keep them in perfect collectible condition, the Video Game History Foundation delivers them in Mylar bags paired with acid-free boards, all wrapped up in a sturdy flat mailer. They even come with a certificate of authenticity, signed by the founders, co-directors, Frank. I'm going to butcher this name. Cifaldi and Kelsey Lewin. Also, some of the proceeds will also go towards the foundation's charity, which uses their funds to maintain and expand their collection of retro gaming books and magazines, and hopefully making all of it a public resource. And they're only $20.
Only $20. So it's a good way to support a good cause. And if that's the thing that you're interested in, like, even if you don't want to read it, like, I guess you should read it once, but it might be a nice thing you could hang up in your house, have a piece of gaming history.
Yeah, I have like a whole stack of gaming magazines, as well as like a whole shelf full, because I used to get Nintendo Power like every month for like, I don't know, like 10 years or like 13 years or something. I don't know how long. But flipping through video game magazines was a whole vibe. Like
because it was the way to know.
Yeah, it was the way to know.
We didn't have anything.
Yep. It's like there's to give you a parallel for the folks at home. Like if you're somebody who has the vibe of like, oh, I gotta have a book in my hands. Like I just prefer to consume when I'm reading a book, I want to hold it in my hands the same way, like in the way that if you're looking up video game like strats or cheats or whatever, there's a totally different experience of like flipping through a magazine and reading articles about stuff and only having screenshots to go off of than watching YouTube videos or going to GameFAQs and all that stuff like that. Very, very different.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's crazy how much, I was talking to someone about, and this is definitely something that's going to come up because assuming that COVID doesn't impact this trip, but it might end up just because stuff's getting wild. I wanted to visit one of the last U.S. blockbusters that's in operation in Oregon. They're having like a sleep-in, and it got us into a conversation about how fast media had transitioned from even when you get VHS, people think VHS was around a lot. It really wasn't. VHS was not here that long. So even as it came out and spawned the rental store like that, just boom, 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 boom. You just had so many media formats, just boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
It makes you think about but it makes you think about print magazines specifically for gaming, and that yes, it was the way that we knew what was happening, and then it was like gone.
Yep.
Like so it's weird that like your way to play
today,
demos,
gone tomorrow.
Like
man, the Sony Smash Packs, those used to slap.
And the Underground magazine discs.
Yep.
And then then the ability to talk to the editor, like sending in, so like you'd actually like they were like, and that's why I like
stuff. Yeah. And they had a fan art in the last couple pages of the magazine.
Yes.
And if you drew a picture and they thought it was cool, they'd put it there and print it in the next issue. It's cool.
And then to your point about cheat codes, sometimes some of them would keep that like was it like a list library kind of?
Kind of, sort of. It was like a couple magazines would have like a couple pages like dedicated, like, oh, here, here's the pages of the Grand Theft Auto cheat codes. Here's the the Mega Man stuff. For me, because I'm a nerd. My mom and I had like 3x5 cards, like a whole like stack of them with cheat codes for various different games in the library, and I like went through and I alphabetized them. There was like a certain point where like I had a whole bunch of them that were like near illegible because I wrote them before I knew how to write. So like 6 or 7 year old me was like basically going through my own hieroglyphs and like transcribing them on a new card so they were actually readable.
So definitely, this would be great to support a fantastic foundation. I'm really big on game preservation, so this really near to my heart. Something that does drive me nuts as a video game collector, and I do need to couch this with, obviously with this next thing that I say is something that could potentially benefit me, so please take that with a grain of salt. But video game collecting is getting more expensive with certain generations of games. It doesn't mean everything's expensive. Like, there's a copy of Super Mario 64 that sold for an outrageous amount for the amount that it was graded. But even those are more like grading a particular item. It doesn't mean that every cartridge of Super Mario 64 is going to go for that. So if you want to buy N64 and get some N64 games to play, you can generally still do that. It's just, or if you want to get GameCube games, then that's harder. But but it's in that phase right now. Given some time, so this is natural. It kind of goes up and down. But something that's a little weird is I am not a huge fan of Goodwill. I know so job creation is important. So I do appreciate that they provide jobs to some folks that are otherwise would not have those jobs. So this is not attacking that portion of it. They're quite powerful, substantial nonprofit group that I guess will operate tax-free based off like donations. And yet they run an auction site for things that you submit to Goodwill. So in the case of this group out of Philadelphia, this is the Philadelphia Goodwill store. And what every Goodwill is supposed to do, they just not always done consistently across Goodwills, but they go in when you donate games, check and see what's the value of them, and then put them on this auction site for Goodwill. And this current set of NES boxed sealed games, which I don't know why someone just dropped them off in a Goodwill.
Because they didn't know what they had. They didn't know what they had.
Sold for $10,000 on Goodwill, and then subsequently, as far as it being charged on eBay, went for $33,000.
Ooh-wee, man.
So as someone that would like to play some of these games, that's frustrating to even have the opportunity to do that. Now, again, if I didn't have a big deal with if it was the Video Game History Foundation doing an auction site, I actually really support their mission. I love what they're doing. So if they were doing this, wouldn't have a problem with it. I personally just can't. I can't get behind Goodwill. So watching all these games go for astronomical prices on a company auction site that I just can't get behind is just a little makes my stomach turn a little bit. So that's why, again, I'm caveating that with this. This is very much a Kenneth personal gripe with Goodwill. So if you're like, I don't see what the big deal is, it's like functionally, if someone wants to pay that much and for those games, that's not really what my problem is. Although that's still,
yeah. Ultimately, things only have the value to which we assign to them. So, aside from like water and food, those things are always valuable.
Yeah. I prepared. Actually, I'll take the next scoop because I prepared for these.
Yeah,
I also wanted to make sure I could said them right.
Yeah.
So, I didn't. Oh yeah, I did not include a photo for this next game just because I don't think anyone should buy it.
Yep.
And we're just really gonna give it. It should be obvious, but making a game called Heal Hitler should be self-explanatorily bad. Like you shouldn't. So the concept of the game that's available on Steam, although it might have been taken down as of this recording, so was that you would play a psychiatrist, and some of the famed conversations that have been had about Hitler's youth, and I don't mean the Hitler's youth, I mean, but his time as a young child, about the things that happened about him and the way it shaped his life. You as a psychiatrist trying to repair that so that he doesn't do the things that he'll do later. And you might say, what's the problem with that? It's just not the character that we need to do that with.
You could just as easily have just made a game about psychological rehabilitation and have a bunch of different people come in with different problems that you have to help them navigate and solve. And that could be a totally fun game all by itself, but to try and use like a still, within our lifetimes tragedy.
Yeah. So again, concept taking him out of it, we're cool with, but yeah, putting him into that is tragically bad.
It's like, you're exploiting something with the goal of trying to make your game have some what's the word I'm looking for? Hook or not even niche, but just some, what's the word? Tip of my tongue. It'll get there. Hook out is sufficient enough.
Well,
but
it feels like it's
gimmick.
Yeah, but it also feels like Cody Johnson over at Some More News on YouTube has this series about rehabilitating monsters, and something that's happening in media right now where people have done horrible things, and then we kind of like trying to like be like, yeah, but they're not as bad as because there's certain things happening now that were like, oh, well, by comparison, they weren't. It's like, no.
It's like some actions that you take are just explicitly bad, and maybe not. I'll slide that. But some things there are just explicitly bad, and and people perhaps don't deserve forgiveness or anything like that.
Or they need to do a lot of work, and even then, it may not be.
Yeah, forgiveness is subjective, but that's I'm projecting a little bit, as you might expect. But for me, it's like some things are unforgivable, and you don't need to ever forgive them, and they can become better and they can change, but you don't have to. Your opinion doesn't need to change.
Yeah. So we'll move on to happier news because Witcher superfan. Let me make sure I get Vitalina Basari. I had it.
So that was close.
Batsarashkina, yeah.
Nailed it.
Takes home gold at the Tokyo Olympics. Obviously, it's happening this year instead of 2020. Last year, they took home silver, but this year, in a very tight match that you can go look up on YouTube, had been down, almost wasn't going to make the cut for the final four, then goes head-to-head with the person that had been leading the entire time and just progressively making more and more shots. So there are a bunch of, obviously there's a lot of nerds and geeks that are at the Olympics every year, but what Catalina does, she has a lot of her Witcher gear either like into her uniform, or as you can see in the photo on the screen, actually has the Witcher icon on her necklace, and is like wearing it proudly as she's shot during the match. So you can actually see it dangling around. So nice to see her nerd cred out there flying as she like does airsoft pistol and brings a win home for her country. So
yeah. I actually have the same like Witcher necklace. I think I got it at like a Renaissance fair a couple years ago. No idea where I put it. I have no idea.
Cool.
Let's see. Okay, yeah. So the Olympic opening ceremony music was very video game driven. So we had Dragon's Quest Overture Roto's theme, which was immediately followed by Final Fantasy's Victory fanfare. Square Enix role-playing games were very well represented at the Olympics opening ceremony, with selections from the Saga, Chrono series, Kingdom Hearts, Nair series, even Gradius and Soul Calibur. I love Gradius, such a fun game. Made an appearance. Suspiciously absent was anything related to Nintendo or Pokemon, but we did still have some Sonic the Hedgehog music there. Also, like I've memed the phrase Sonic the Hedgehog so many times. Every time I read it or say it, I have to fight not to say Sonic the Hedgehog.
Wow, what?
Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, it was a meme from about a bonkers photo of Sonic that people deemed Sonic the Hedgehog. But yeah, so here's some of the music that was played at the Tokyo Olympics. We had Dragon Quest. We had Roto's theme from Dragon Quest, the Victory fanfare from Final Fantasy, Sori's theme, the Shepherd from Tales of series, Proof of a Hero from Monster Hunter, the Olympus Coliseum from Kingdom Hearts. I can't remember how that one goes in my head. Frog's theme from Chrono Trigger, First Flight from Ace of Combat. We had Window Departure from Monster Hunter, Starlight Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog. We had some Final Fantasy. It's not Final Fantasy. Sorry. Phantasy Star Universe. We had Guardians theme. Gradius. Act 01. Act 1-1. Nier Song of the Ancients. Soul Calibur. The Brave New Stage of History, as well as like a couple of others as well. I didn't want to go through the whole list, but just to blast a few out there.
Yeah. Well, obviously we're not playing that because the licensing issues.
Yeah.
So just
the best you get is us like occasionally singing it in a familiar but legally distinct fashion. Familiar but legally distinct.
All right. I don't think that sucks is that it was to an empty stadium, and
yeah,
I just feel like the reaction
would have been pretty fresh.
Yeah, that's all. So I just would have liked to know how people reacted to it. All right, we are in our final segment of the night before we get to our main topic, and it is time to check the tech.
Check the tech. Do you want to take the first one or the second one?
Sure, I'll take the first one. So Facebook and Microsoft have come together to create a counterterrorism organization, most likely going to be joined with other tech giants, using a shared resource from the GIFCT, or that stands for the Global Internet Forum to Counterterrorism. And what that group does, or what that database does, is has a highlight of certain hashtags and different tags that you might see in content or articles or like posts on pages, especially on social media websites. And if that is used, it's an opportunity for the tech giants to get that flagged, for like see that flagged. And most recent history been used for like Al-Qaeda groups. So it's like if someone was trying to recruit with terrorist organizations, they were using that to combat that. Mm-hmm. But with the rise of far-right and domestic terrorism groups, they're trying to get more of that information into the database so that other tech giants can like use that shared database to make decisions on what content needs to be pulled from their sites. Now, advocacy groups have noted that because of the poor record of social media groups already and how they handle and police their content. While I do want to note, like in some ways they've gotten better, but that can also be kind of a broad-handed. If you try to critique, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, they've gotten better literally because they failed spectacularly and like were basically legally demanded to do better.
Yeah.
So they're not like doing better like, oh wow, you know, guys, we really need to come together because we can improve the quality of things. It's like, no, it's like you had major leaks of people's critical information and everybody's like, yo, you need to be held accountable for this. So they're not doing better because they are the kindness of their heart or like of a decision to the responsibility of their users. They're doing better because they're being demanded to.
So the advocacy group that was mentioned in the article from Reuters was talking about what legitimate uses of free speech, like if you were, let's say even you were just critiquing or criticizing some of these alt-right, far-right domestic terrorist groups. Are you going to get lumped in that because you mentioned something that they had said or used some kind of keyword and so on and so forth? Like, and particularly because there's really no oversight to this right now. I think that's the bigger thing. It's like the identification is a problem, but I think if you had the oversight, that could help mitigate or adjust for those problems. But with no oversight board committee running this. And currently there's 14 companies in that database that share and use it right now. There's more potentially coming into this. So
for me, I mean, I understand like that you know, all of these places are already notably bad at automated recognition of anything. You know, and I'll add a brief anecdote, which hopefully won't send me spiraling down the rabbit hole of, you know, context is the most important thing for when these things show up. Like you've already mentioned, you know, if you're simply criticizing these things and calling them out for what they are, but you're using the keywords that show up in some of the posts of those things, because you will inevitably cross keyboards with that. You know, how do you make sure you don't get flagged? And the answer is, you need, if you want to do it automatically, you have to have a very robust solution, or you have to have a human review component. Basically, like, you know, doing keyword type stuff of like, oh, this word showed up in this post and therefore it's bad, isn't good enough. For example, if I, you know, say the word baseball in a sentence, like how does a bot know that the sentence is not about baseball? If I say like, oh yeah, you know, can you pass me that gallon of orange juice over by the baseball, or to the right of the baseball, like they're like, oh, this sentence is obviously about baseball, that's a flagged word, get out of here, you're out of here. There, we got to tie it in. And the answer is you know, that's not a simple problem to solve, nor is it a cheap problem to solve. You know, for folks who like Jeopardy, if you remember years ago, what was it? IBM's Watson went on, and like, you know, it has that ability to differentiate between what the context of a sentence is about, and that's a very, very big project. And if you want to have some sort of automated tool that can discern whether somebody's being critical of these kind of organizations or if they are in fact endorsing them or simply bringing it up, then you know, if you want to do it automated, you got to build something that's sophisticated enough to understand context, not just content.
There you go. All right.
Oh, and to put a cap on it, and they're not going to do that. So, you know, they're not going to do that. Alrighty, here we go. Tencent shares dip after more Beijing crackdowns. Last week we reported on a potential big news with Tencent acquisitions they were making in the UK. If you recall, they were trying to acquire some companies and they kind of got booted. But the crackdowns from Beijing regarding their effective music monopoly caused a massive drop in shares. Tencent handles the negotiations for most foreign music before it enters China with a 80% share of the market. So them trying to acquire more companies in quote unquote good faith basically like they were like, nah, nope, not in good faith, can't do it. But yeah, that's a steep drop.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I'm not saying Tencent was state backed. That's not exactly what I'm trying to say, but they've been given the green light on a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So this is quite a shift, and it's going to take some more time to dive into it. So that's why we're also not launching into it too much yet. I probably need to trace back some other. Yeah, this is definitely very developing, but it's interesting that. So it's one thing for like the global community to say we're not going to interact with you or try to cancel a deal from their side. So like if let's say if the UK government had said that forgot who they were trying to buy.
I can't remember, but it's in our notes from last week.
So if they had canceled that as like a possibly as a jab towards China, we've seen that happen before.
It was they were trying to buy Sumo, British gaming studio.
But coming from mainland China, from the highest levels of the government, I'm assuming like that's interesting. So again, we don't know for sure. We'll dive into that more and try to get you more reporting on that. But this is it's very odd, unless something's shifted that we're just not aware of. Cool. All right. So this is going to be our content warning for the remainder of the show. So give y'all a second you're not going to hurt our feelings if you need to leave for what's getting ready to have the conversation about the, and I'm not going to say accusations, the toxic workplace culture and harassment and assaults that have been happening at Activision Studios, Blizzard, and also at the myriad of worldwide location studios of Ubisoft. So this is a heads up about what we're getting ready to talk about, because this has been happening for years.
Yeah, long
there's
time.
been reporting that's been coming out over the last 2 years, and particularly the stuff I was seeing that came out last year. It kind of confirmed my suspicions of when it happened. A lot of it happened during the summer of 2020, which might explain why this is not an excuse from either us or other agencies reporting on it, but that might at least explain why when it came out, this did not get the attention that it probably should have, and now that it's like coming up again, and the lawsuit that came out of California that launched, that might be why it's at the forefront now. So I guess we don't have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out why I didn't like that. That's not really productive, but it is at least
worth noting.
Yeah. All right, so we'll get into it.
Where to start, honestly? I guess with the most recent Activision Blizzard.
Yeah, if you
So, geez. Where to even start just with Activision Blizzard? Let's see.
Actually, let me read this quote from. There's a reason I put this forward. I think this would be good for folks like you and myself, and for other folks that are probably on Twitch talking about this, or on other gaming platforms, YouTube, so on and so forth. Other folks that work particularly men that work in the game industry, that have to go back into their offices that are not these companies, or if you are going back into work in these offices. Mary Kinney, who's a writer for Insomniac Games, writes story narratives for Insomniac Games, says, game dev or game developer dudes, the thing not to do this week is turn to the woman in your company to reassure you that, no, actually, you're the one of the good ones. Self-reflect on what you've done to help marginalized voices in your organization. If the answer is nothing, well, it's a good day to start. So I kind of want to drop that. Not as a weight on everyone, but just kind of like a for the devs that might be listening and watch this later, the work that's ahead of us after this.
For anything, I think that's good advice. When somebody tells you about like something that has happened to them that they've had to deal with, don't immediately make it about you and like immediately put up like defensive barriers of like, oh, like I'm not the problem. It's like, look, man, this isn't about you, or it might be because of you, but the focus is elsewhere right now, and I'm not gonna try to pander to you like, oh no, you're fine, because that's expending energy on the wrong kind of stuff. But I guess we'll start with Activision Blizzard. So they have, it's come to light from the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing suit that got filed this past Wednesday. Is basically alleges like a number of sexual harassment and discrimination accounts against Activision Blizzard's female employees. They have a lot of information that's been going on for a long time, which has come to a head recently with the suicide of one of their employees, who had suffered sexual harassment at the
It was a work trip, I believe.
Yeah, it was a work trip at the hands of like a number of the male coworkers and some of the executives over the course of like a number of things. And you know, people report a number of this isn't like a one-off thing here and there, but rather it's a number of executives and also employees that have done things like what they describe as cube crawls, where the male employees would quote unquote drink copious amounts of alcohol as they crawl through various cubicles in the office and engage in inappropriate behavior towards female employees. And
some of them were getting so drunk that they had to pass on their work to their female employees because they could no longer get it accomplished. And to note, these are also the same women that are not getting paid the same as their male counterparts to add
for similar work.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Whoop, lost my spot.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah. For the woman who committed suicide, supposedly what had happened was she was getting sexually harassed at work, and one of the coworkers shared an intimate photo of her around the workplace.
And revenge porn kind of.
Yeah. And Activision Blizzard made a response that, quote unquote, "We are sickened by the reprehensible conduct of the DFEH to drag into the compliant the tragic suicide of an employee whose passing has no bearing whatsoever on this case, and with no regard for a grieving family." So by my perspective,
no context?
they're not even like, you know, acknowledging their role in this by saying that. Like
not in the slightest.
Like this,
we're gonna get into.
Yeah, this quote could and is being taken out of context, but the quote by itself is all the context that you need for how they feel about the situation. They're completely dismissive of their role in what happened. They're completely dismissive of the culture in which they've helped propagate. One of the articles goes on to mention that of the 10,000 employees that work for Activision Blizzard, only 24% of them are women. Not, you know, women of color or women or white women or whatever, just women as a whole. Not even a quarter.
Yeah. So I do want to there's no PR spin that's going to save this. And I'll project what I think needs to happen later toward the end of the show. But if you want to understand why I'm upset from a changes that need to happen standpoint and why I don't think it's going to happen, let me read what's happened between an email that J. Allen Brack, who's the president of Blizzard, sent out to the employees, to the staff this previous night, or it might have been 2 nights ago, and then a public statement that he made. And then another internal email that came out, which prompted the 1,000 employee response that came out today. So Blizzard President J. Allen Brack sent out an email to staff last night addressing the allegations from last week's explosive lawsuit, calling them extremely troubling and saying that he'd be meeting with many of you to answer questions and discuss how we can move forward. And there's a statement from Brack, or a quote from Brack. "People of different backgrounds, views, and experiences are essential for Blizzard, our teams, and our community, our player community. I disdain bro culture and have spent my career fighting it." But you have to couple that with something that came out specifically from the lawsuit before I even get to the other email that was sent. Something that came out specifically in the lawsuit. Brack is said to be among those who was aware of Aphrodite's purported actions. So this is a Warcraft senior creative director, Alex Aphrodite, that alleged he was permitted to engage in blatant sexual harassment with little to no repercussions and suggested that the activity was an open secret. So going back to the lawsuit, quote, Brack is said to be among those who's aware of his reported actions. The lawsuit claimed Brack allegedly had multiple conversations about his drinking and that he'd been too friendly toward female employees at company events, but gave him a slap on the wrist, verbal counseling in response to those incidences. After those supposed talks, he continued to make unwanted advances toward female employees, including groping one of them, according to the suit. And that's just of those two executives right there.
Who are sending out the emails to their employees.
Yeah. And there's more coverage on that, but I'm going to drop down to why to the email that to me that completely invalidates Brack's email to his employees. Activision Blizzard executive Fran Townsend, who was the Homeland Security Advisor to George W. Bush from 2004 to 2007 and joined Activision in this past March, sent out a very different kind of email. And I've been pulling this from the Engadget article, so some of this is quoting directly from their verbiage. And had some Blizzard employees fuming, which led to the 1,000 again. A recently filed lawsuit presented a distorted and untrue picture of our company, including factually incorrect, old and out of context stories, some from more than a decade ago. Let's see. The Activision companies of today, the Activision companies that I know, are great companies with good values. He also claimed that Blizzard takes a hardline approach to inappropriate or hostile work environments and sexual harassment issues, and that the companies put tremendous effort into creating fair compensation policies that reflect our commitment to equal opportunity.
Nope.
No.
It's like that's two very different verbiages, and it's like I can't imagine how you could send one or the other out without thinking that like your employees wouldn't read the other one or wouldn't be aware of it. Like that, to me, that's bonkers. And another thing that is mentioned across various articles is these aren't like, oh, when the allegations come out, they get rid of the people who were involved. Like that's not what's happening. What happens is if they are reprimanded at all, it's just a slap on the wrist. Like, hey man, and that's it. That's the length of the conversation.
Yeah.
So this isn't like her claim of like, oh, we're a different company now. It's like, many of the perpetrators are still working for the company.
And have been promoted.
Yeah, and have been promoted.
Multiple projects.
Yep. And this isn't like, oh, nobody at Blizzard 10 years ago is here. This is everybody at the company is brand new. That's not the case.
That's not the case. Keep a hold of that fact of the shuffling, because that is very much the problem with Ubisoft. We'll talk about them in a second. But yes, they are. If Activision is like a grade level of buffoonery as far as moving people around, Ubisoft taught them how to do it, and so much so that people were calling them a French mafia multiple times in different articles. That was used repeatedly by employees. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
I am not going to read the apology tour bullshit. I'm just going to call it what it is from former execs from Blizzard that have tried to wash their hands. Blizzard, Activision have tried to wash their hands of this because there's no way. Well, okay. So one, if you didn't know, you're still to blame because you weren't doing the job to know your employees and understand what was going on around them.
Ignorance is not a it doesn't absolve you of guilt.
Yeah.
Or of wrongdoing rather.
Exactly. And if it's the latter or if it's the other way and you were complicit with this or more complicit with this as far as actively engaging in it, then I don't really care. These apologies don't matter. It don't matter.
You can't just be like you can't do something and take advantage of people for 10 plus years or 5 years, however long you happen to be a part of it, and then later go after you were called out and were removed from your position or whatever. You can't years later just go, oh my bad, and think that that's sufficient. Not at all.
No. But I will read the letter that was sent from the 1,000 employees condemning the Blizzard execs for their handling of the lawsuit and the language that came out of it, because I do feel like that is much more appropriate and it's very cuts to the heart of what's happening here. So this letter was sent to managers today. 2 sources confirmed with a full copy that was shared with Kotaku. And shout out to Kotaku because I'm gonna really talk about the reporting a lot when we get to Ubisoft pieces, because that's what part of the avalanche that happened now started in 2020 with Ethan Gouch's coverage of what was happening there, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this game in Singapore is not doing well," and then unearthed chaos. So that poor man probably was really like, "Oh yeah, I just want to find out why this game's not." Oh God. But again, okay. Well, we'll get to it.
Let
me read this statement. To the leaders of Activision Blizzard, we, the undersigned, agree that the statements from Activision Blizzard Inc. and their legal counsel regarding the lawsuit, as well as the subsequent internal statement from Francis Townsend, are abhorrent and insulting to all that we believe our company should stand for. To put it clearly and unequivocally, our values as employees are not accurately reflected in the words and the actions of our leadership. We believe these statements have damaged our ongoing quest for equality inside and outside of our industry, characterizing the claims that have been made as distorted and in many cases false, creates a company atmosphere that disbelieves victims. It also casts doubts on our organization's ability to hold abusers accountable for their actions and foster a safe environment for victims to come forward in the future. These statements make it clear that our leadership is not putting our values first. Immediate corrections are needed from the highest level of our organizations. Our company executives have claimed that actions will be taken to protect us, but in the face of legal action and the troubling official responses that followed, we no longer trust that our leaders will place employee safety above their own interests. To claim that this is a truly meritless and irresponsible lawsuit, while seeing so many current and former employees speak out about their own experiences regarding harassment and abuse, is simply unacceptable. And to add a note, so we talked about former execs. We weren't going to read their statements. I would have liked to read some of the folks that are coming out in support of the lawsuit. We just didn't have time to pull that because there's a lot. There's just a lot. So again, that's definitely not to disrespect the information that they're putting out there. Just there's a lot. So just probably something we're going to have to follow up on another time, or do shoot something else as well. But definitely would have liked to get their voices out there. We just didn't have time today.
Yeah, it's there's a whole lot of information about it. And there's no way that we can do it justice in the length of time that we have. So we're just trying to, cherry pick as much as we can to kind of give you as rounded of a view as possible within the time constraint.
We call for official statements that recognize the seriousness of these allegations and demonstrate compassion for victims of harassment and assault. We call on Frances Townsend to stand by her word to step down as executive sponsor at the ABK Employee Women's Network as a result of the damaging nature of her statement. We call on the executive leadership team to work with us on new and meaningful efforts that ensure employees, as well as our community, have a safe place to speak out and come forward. We stand for our friends, teammates, and colleagues, as well as the members of our dedicated community who have experienced mistreatment or harassment of any kind. We will not be silenced. We will not stand aside, and we will not give up to the company we love as a workplace we can all feel proud to be a part of again. We will be the change. As a result of things that have come out the past week and this week, Prima Strategy Games has dropped Activision Blizzard coverage. And trying to confirm if that's happening with Ubisoft. But as far as any video game tips and strategies that they would have developed for the games, that is being put on hold for any ones that had future DLC and future games coming out the rest of this year. And there's just a list of different folks that have been dropping them. Different people not playing their games on Twitch has also been a drop that's been happening as well. There are a couple more companies, but I'll get that pulled up in a moment.
Mm-hmm. While you're doing that, so oftentimes we'll talk about what is the purpose of boycotting a company, or how do you do it effectively? You were just one individual, and it's anything that you do that hits a company's bottom line, however small, has an effect. You don't die from one paper cut. One paper cut's not going to kill you. Yeah. But you can be seriously injured and develop many a problem with 100 paper cuts, 1,000 paper cuts, 10,000 paper cuts, 100,000 paper cuts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the collective effort of everybody to say, I refuse to do this thing. And you can't worry about like, oh, well, like, you know, single-handedly, I'm not going to topple this entity. Of course you weren't single-handedly. There's too much inertia. But you have to make a decision about what you choose to support and what you choose not to support. And, you know, if everybody else makes that same decision and chooses to back it in the ways that they can, then it does have a meaningful impact. If this is something that hurts Activision Blizzard's bottom line, whomever the primary shareholders are, will demand change and start unseating these people.
Yeah, it will take me a little more time to see who else was. I was trying to find it, but I can't find that particular article. I had it listed out. They had different ones. So
which one are you thinking of? Because I have a couple open.
I think it was the Kotaku article about Game Explain. I think their YouTube channel is going to stop doing coverage, and
I don't have that one open. So for the folks at home, we're in our show notes. We have, you know, tons of references and articles. This is probably one of the biggest sections with as many resources and notes that we've had in a long time. So it's a bit heavier to comb through for specific details.
Yeah. Let's see. Do we want to shift to Activision?
Do you mean
sorry,
Ubisoft? Sorry, say it again. Your mic cut out for a moment.
Yeah, do we want to shift to Ubisoft?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah. And again, we could go. There's definitely more we could talk about there. Let's see. Hi, Man of Iron 12. This is not. We're not streaming tonight. This is the Monday show, so this is typically for. This is typically for the news. Although next week is our monthly stream while we try to cast the news, so we will definitely be getting to that next Monday. But yeah, this for the Monday show. State of Nerd Union is not a game stream; it's just more of like getting you caught up on the news. But yeah, we have the other streams that'll happen throughout the week. Hopefully, I was going to do that today, but before the show.
Up.
But yeah, a lot happened.
Mm-hmm.
The Ubisoft one. Oof.
That's a big one. Yeah.
And that's I really want to be sure. I want to be clear that I'm not saying one is worse. That's not what I'm trying to say. This one
just
pissed me off more.
Conversationally, it's like, you know, what I said at the beginning is like, where do you start?
So and I actually did have time to send an email to Kotaku, but they're probably getting bombarded with requests, so we'll see if they get back to us. I was just trying to understand the timeline from Ethan Gotch regarding, because my understanding is he was trying to figure out the gaming, like because Ubisoft Singapore was coming out of a game that was a long story short, was a DLC for Assassin's Creed Black Flag that was potentially going to be its own Assassin's Creed game. Then it turned into what is known as Skull and Bones as an own MMO pirates game. So because the Ubisoft Singapore had made the ship dynamics for Black Flag, they were tasked to do this game and kind of use that engine to build into something else. So it's like, okay. But that thing started getting into development hell. Mm-hmm. So from my understanding,
as you might expect.
Yeah. Which is a number of other reasons. And Ethan's first article on it covers that a lot of those issues. Like for one, the deal with Ubisoft Singapore was so that not that all of them would be developers from Singapore, but that a significant portion of the workforce would be from Singapore. So that'd be an economic boon to the country.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you might still have upper leadership that was from the Paris offices of Ubisoft and different spots like that. But generally, a lot of the workforce is going to be there in Singapore. But that either to some degrees didn't happen, or the folks that were working there were not being paid the same amount as their French counterparts. So a lot of like nationalistic prejudice happening there. Multiple conversations happening. Like generally English was the accepted conversational for meetings and things, and the big exclusionary tactic, even though it had been called out multiple times, was just to switch and talk in French. And like, yeah.
Yep. They would one of the executives would like insult co-workers in French, knowing that they couldn't understand it, or vice versa. You might switch to English or another language that somebody doesn't understand, so that you can talk about them right in front of them, or make fun of them to the collective or whatever.
Yeah. So, and then the article from Ethan gets into the details, like how many team leads were leaving, how many people were like repeatedly just like jumping ship from the company, or from that, especially from that project, but just the company overall in Singapore. And it's not that's that shouldn't be normal for a game company anyway, but it's just like, okay, dysfunction's happening here in Singapore. Now there's multiple Ubisoft offices, and I want to go back to a quote that comes from while problems at Ubisoft Montreal, Toronto, Quebec, Montpellier, and the head Paris office had been widely documented, Singapore had gotten less attention because of the reporting that was kind of coming out on those, and the time frame again from last summer. So we fast forward back to now, and as more information is coming out on that, we're getting more information on the sexual harassment assaults that are happening in Singapore, and particularly, let me make sure I get the name right. I am missing
the. Which one are you looking at?
Oh, Hughes Ricor. This is one of the because I was in the Singapore articles a lot. He's the one that was running the Skull and Bones project, and then got moved to another office. Just so effectively a promotion.
It's a shifting of, like when you mentioned earlier, it's like if Activision Blizzard was like the toddler version of this, like Ubisoft taught them how to do it. Like whenever there's too many complaints about somebody with harassment or sexual or not, they just push them someplace else.
So the other thing that was happening apparently as well was, so we talked about how there was that nationalistic prejudice happening. It was also being used to harass them in a way that downplayed their complaints. So if you had Singaporean women coming in to make a complaint, they would blame it on a cultural misunderstanding. The HR department would, which I'm like,
no.
I mean,
especially when you hear about like some of the purposeful like psychological damage that one of the persons Dumont would use, and he would purposefully like slam doors or punch walls or throw stuff, or like make, just for no apparent reason, make employees cry, and notably particularly women, as is mentioned in one of the articles, and just generally harass people. And when he was called out on it, he would make like some a superfluous bullshit comment about like his upbringing and how he knows what he's talking about, and be super defensive.
On a lighter note, real quick, Man of Iron saying Steve looks like LeBron James, an amazing basketball player. You know what? I can kind of see it.
Because it's the beard that does it. It's because LeBron has a Philly style beard.
Oh Lord. Sorry, I did want to inject a little bit of levity there, just because this has been a lot.
It's like if I can get LeBron like money, then I'd be golden.
So we focus on Singapore. So the biggest things that jump out in the Ubisoft problems is that they invited, or they were okay with, a competitive and demeaning, like, I'm not even just, it's not even like, it's, again, so I'm not sure, again, I didn't want to level Activision versus Ubisoft, but also within the Ubisoft structure, this type of competitiveness with your within the employee structure also bred additional harassment and torment to the less paid or lower ranked employees, like people that were
Mhm.
further down in the organizational chart. So specifically with Rykor, like, yeah, if you could impress him and also step on your teammates at the same time, that was widely encouraged. And it sounds like this is a practice that has happened in the other offices as well. Like, this is a very recurring theme of, especially stemming from the Paris office, that they are okay with this type of like shark eats shark mentality. You add that on top of all the other things that are allowed to go on, and it's like, I'm really surprised. I don't want to say
It sounds more when you compile all this stuff together. It may just be the culture in that, like, we know that the gaming world is a male dominated world and has been for a really, really long time, but to have it to such a degree in so many of their places almost makes it feel like it's by design that it's like this.
Yeah, it really seems like this, like Paris set the model for this and then just copy pasted to Montreal, to the different offices.
Yeah,
and
because
didn't blink an eye. Like,
there's definitely like those executives who were like, oh yeah, like, I want somebody whose defining trait is asshole, and like, that's the person I want to be my executive, because for some reason I derive a correlation between you harassing people and just generally being a bad person with workplace productivity and happy employees, quote unquote, or at least getting good product out, and that's not the case.
Yeah. So definitely heads up for this next comment. So this is about Ubisoft Toronto. Maxime Balland is one of the co-founders, and until last week, and when did this one come out? This is regarding the building of Watch Dogs Legion. So this is last year. So when I said Ubisoft was pissing me off more, this is one of the reasons, is that they're using the word allegedly. I guess technically if I need to say it legally, but I don't really care, that he had choked a female employee at a work party.
I saw that. I read that one.
Some people recited it as a bizarre one-off. No!
How?
No!
How would you cite it as a quote unquote bizarre one-off?
And then the next statement's not any better. Others shared it as a warning to women at the studio to be wary of Villan. But that should do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Do not collect $200. Call the police.
Yeah, this isn't like, oh man, watch out for that guy. He choked somebody at the holiday party. That's not a sentence that you should ever utter. It should be, he choked somebody at the holiday party. I'm calling the police.
Yeah,
like, we need to get this dude out of here because he's not safe for this workplace environment.
Yeah, that's no longer an HR problem.
Yeah,
there's still like going to be an HR issue after that person's removed, but that's no longer an HR problem. This is a criminal, like, you need to be removed. And there's obviously criminal acts happening this entire time. So to be clear, I'm not saying like
this is the one,
but like, damn, people.
Yeah, like, come on.
Even after that incident, he continued to be the studio's star creative director, briefly leaving for Epic Games in early 2019 before returning to Ubisoft in an even more powerful role in the company's centralized editorial division. Get to control their media and as
somebody in a position of power, to know that an employee has done something like that, and to make two decisions: one, to say, I won't fire you because of this, and again to say, when you leave, I will allow you to come back in spite of this, are two decisions that not a single person likely made, but a number of people had to sign off on, that gives you perfect insight into what their workplace culture is like and where their values are.
Yeah.
Making video games isn't, spinning yarn into gold. Like, yes, it's hard, and yes, it's challenging, but it's not something that like only one person in the world can do. Like, find somebody else.
Yeah. Like, you will be okay. Find someone else. But again, it speaks to the structural problem. And I guess I'll put the last thing I want to really touch on, because there's more. There's articles upon articles for each city I listed, specifically the things that are being pulled out on that. So we focus on Singapore, but we could have done that on every single, and we talked a little bit about what happened in Toronto, but we could have gone in every single one. And again, we're not giving all the accounts because we'd be here for a long time. And there's probably going to be just more stuff coming out, which needs to come out. But again, we need more time to cover that. But not just the leadership failing, but every account that I'm reading of, particularly women, although there's accounts of men having these same issues. And again, that's not to do with like a whataboutism at all. Just counting that, like, this was it was gender specific, but it was also, this was hitting a lot of people as well. So as far as like women being afraid to come out and speak out about what's happening because of the repeated times they were getting basically chewed up through HR.
Yeah.
Right. So you already know you can't go to your leadership to handle this, and the HR departments were only there to really protect the company.
There's one. I'm gonna see if I can find the names. But it was one of the executives who had a number of issues brought up to him, or brought up about him. His wife was the head of their HR department, so he never went unpunished. So so for a lot of the employees who happened to be women, because that's what they were being targeted by this executive and by other people, it was like there's no purpose in bringing any of this up, because you poison the water supply. Like your connection to HR is somebody who's in your personal life. So if they want to cover it for you, they're not just a person in HR, that's the head of HR. So they can do whatever. So why would anybody come forward after a certain point? Like, all of their alarms are being rung on deaf ears. So, nothing changes.
Yeah. And I bring up the HR to show like so one of the other reasons I didn't read the Activision's former execs and things they had said is because their ability to speak out, like, you've got retirement plans now with these companies. Like you left and you're sitting pretty, which is a other theme. So we talked about the moving around of current employees at Ubisoft. But like with Mikkel Ansel, who is the creative director behind the Beyond Good and Evil series, and left Beyond Good and Evil 2 because of accusations that had come against him the previous year in 2019. And I'm not going to read his toxic statement about calling him false. But that's like the last straw version, but they're still that's not punishment. Again, because if you've been with a company that many years, you're still getting your 401k, and so you can just sit back and be like, yeah, I created a toxic environment, but I'm not really going to get hit by that. That's not really a punishment. And then again, that's still in the most extreme cases, or the most pushback, like with Ansel. Again, some of the people we were talking about are still with the company.
Yep. And that's why it's one of a number of points of why that they're not actually dedicated to change. Like the way you change is by getting rid of the problem, and the problem is the people. And so yes, you can do some training and then have them point out these are situations of workplace harassment or whatever, and you can give them the opportunity to change given the number of incidents that they had. If it's like a one-off, if it's actually somebody who makes a mistake and puts their foot in their mouth or does something stupid, you can point that out to them. But if it's like executives and they're actively going around the workplace and harassing coworkers or pushing their work off to them or doing other kinds of stuff like that, that's that you just need to get them out of there. Like they can learn on their own time, but it's not going to be with your company. It's not going to be around your employees, and they don't have to. You shouldn't make them have to deal with it while they figure it out. Yeah. Get rid of them.
So that leads me to, and again, we'll keep compiling articles as they come out, because I'm sure this is nowhere near done. But that leads me to my thoughts on what needs to happen. And you were talking about the paper cuts earlier, and I don't know. I lean this way towards Activision and Blizzard as well, but I knew definitely for Ubisoft, like, if you really want to fix those, you need to fire everybody.
Yep.
And you got to start over. And like you need oversight. You need to bring in like some outside independent investigators to come in and so the reason I say you need to fire everyone, again, it's not that people can't be hired again, but like if you just bring in some outward investigation and you don't attack the head, then you're not really, it doesn't matter. So to me, like, everything needs to shut down, bring in that outside investigation, so you can completely weed out. And again, it may still mean that you got to like your whole board of directors and the next execs got to be completely fresh, and like not even any holdovers from the other company.
Get rid of all of them, because anybody who has influence over the existing employees is a part of the problem. At a certain point, like as you mentioned before, ignorance does not absolve you of consequence. You know, you're around all these people as an executive. Let's say there's 6 other executives alongside yourself or whatever. You know, you see what's going on. Whether if you don't see it, you're choosing not to see it. So like, you're a part of the problem. You are somebody who's, through either means of fear of confrontation or cowardice, chose not to help the people who you were supposed to be there to protect, to make sure that they stay safe. It's not just your job to make sure projects get done and you bring in money, but it's your job to make sure that your employees have a safe environment that they can work in. And you're not doing that. You're not telling the investors or the shareholders. You're not trying to get these people pushed out or whatever, or whatever. So, you know, you're a part of the problem. You weren't willing to risk your position or whatever because you were like, oh, well, I want money and I'm an executive and I don't want to give that up. So I'm not willing to help, all these people. Get somebody who's more courageous, who's willing to do. There's 2 ways to do things. There's the right way and there's the other way. And we don't do things the other way. And that's the way it is.
And if you need to rehire people, you can start with 1,000 people that sent the petition or signed on to the statement. I don't know for sure if all of them are good to go. Obviously, you need to investigate that and re-interview. But I have a sneaking suspicion, since the culture was not allowing people to stand up and make these statements, that if they were willing to do that, they might be the only good eggs. So I want you to think about that. A company that's over 10,000 employees only had 1,000 sign up for that. Now, granted, I don't know how that was disseminated. I assume it was like email chain.
I assume on some level it has to have inertia to snowball. So there may be more people who sign on, who get onto it before the article went out and so forth. But for me, what I would suggest is chop it off at the head. Leave all the worker bees intact, cut off the executives, and then assess the bees. Yeah. And it's like, if you're an executive, you knew about this problem, so I don't care how complicit you were in propagating it, you didn't help stop it, so you get to go. And if there's somebody who, like, oh, there's one person, oh, you made a whole bunch of complaints to HR and you tried to help people and back them up or whatever, then okay, you could come back. But as the rest of you get to go, and we'll assess everybody. All of the HR complaints that have come through. You probably need to squash HR they're all gone. If not in its entirety, to a massive degree, because you got to have somebody around who still knows the system, who can train whoever they hire afterwards and whatnot. But there's so much rot in the company that yes, it will cripple you to have to cut out that much, but you can't continue working as you are, because what's going to happen is you're going to get a mass exodus. People are going to choose, I don't want to be in this work environment. I don't care if I need to take out a loan and start my own damn company. It is better than being here. And that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And you need to realize the people that are only there right now is because of the paycheck.
Yeah.
Or they maybe have not had the economic means to leave.
Yeah, that's why they stick around.
I completely understand the struggle. Like if you want to make a stand, but because life is how it is, you're like, I still have to eat and I still have to pay rent. And
yeah. I have a family to feed, and it's like I can't make political gestures because I don't have the economic standing to do so, and that's understandable.
Yeah, yeah. Think we covered it.
To what we can.
Right.
As much as we're probably we can try and round out the severity of the issues, within the confines of the better part of a half an hour.
Yeah. I will say, what can you as a gamer be doing right now? Going back to Steve's paper cut. Don't buy Activision and Ubisoft right now. That's just we don't need you to buy that right now. Were you thinking about picking up Watch Dogs Legion? Maybe don't do it.
Yeah, if you already own it and you're in the midst of playing it, like you can probably still do that. But if you're somebody who creates content from that kind of stuff, or you stream it, or you write articles about it, play something else. There's tons of great games that Kenny and I bring up every week as our weekly throwbacks that would make great streaming material that are fun to play, fun to engage in, or whatever. Plenty of stuff that you can play. There's tons and tons of games out there that those companies don't make. Just pick one of those.
Yeah, I know the COD players are gonna be mad. Like, sorry, like you gotta. It would make my heart feel great if I saw that the player list had just plummeted. Like I think can't get a match on Warzone because there ain't nobody on it.
I mean, I know that's not going to be the case, but if they all stopped paying money to play, then that's a major step.
Yeah. Make
them keep the servers up, but don't spend any money.
That's right. So again, thank you all for joining us tonight. If you missed the show, we will have small clips available for you in tomorrow morning. And a lot of people are enjoying that. So thank you for watching those. So again, if you're like, I can't catch a live show, it's like that's cool. Either way, if you watch the short ones, that helps us out. If you watch us now, that helps us out as well. And we do have some more information coming up on the podcast audio issue. We switched services. Commander Ship Show is up and running, so new episodes of that will be coming out regularly. We got a slight 301 direct problem happening with State and Union. They're trying to figure it out what the hell happened. So they will get that figured out. So, but we'd had a backlog of new audio. So for people that just want to listen to the podcast, we will definitely have that fixed relatively soon. So again, apologies that's happened, but it's outside of our control. What do we have coming up, Steve?
All right. Let's see.
Or is it? This is me.
Well, the first one's you. It's we got the Commander Ship Show on Major Time.
So tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Central, me and Tom will be talking. We got some good movie news that's come out, and so we'll talk a little more speculation on Jordan Peele. But we promised last week that we would do Superman and Lois, but we got a little backed up with Loki and different stuff. So we're going to talk about why we love that show. Why we think it's done a really good job and probably the best on-screen Superman since Christopher Reeves. So we'll dive into, and it's not finished. The show's got one or two more episodes to finish the season. So if you've not caught up, we'll try to do as much spoiler-free as we can and put a note up when we're going to get into spoiler territory. But we just really love that show, and it's really a lot of fun. What else?
Yep. And later this week, we have The Rundown with Taryn Bell. Hosted by Taryn, this is your weekly recap of every nerd topic that doesn't fit on our shows throughout the week and gets you ready for the weekend. Friday night, we got coming out where we're checking out the Elder Millennial Indie Film Club.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. The EMIFC. Watching the eternal sunrise of the Spotless Mind at 8 p.m. CST.
Yeah, really excited about that. There's a Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet. Thursday night, the Quorum meets every Thursday, so that's our rewatch group. So you can join us on Discord. We'll talk about a show, and right now we're watching Powerless, which is a DC NBC or DC Universe NBC show about Van Wayne, played by Alan Tudyk and Vanessa Hudgens and Danny Pudi, as they try to create different gadgets and things to protect citizens of Gotham from superpowered beings. So very, very much not about powers, but being surrounded by powers. So the next 3 episodes 4, 5, 6, and 7. So actually, sorry, 4 episodes, 4, 5, 6, and 7. If you don't have access to that, reach out to us on our Facebook pages on Discord or Facebook, and we'll get you contacts on how to get access to the show if you don't have a way of downloading it or renting it. And then Super Blurred Variety Hour is back. It will be on Thursday, 9 p.m. I know it's been a while. I will have a lot to talk about. Some news stories regarding blurs throughout different mediums that haven't had a chance to talk about. So it's been pushed back. We will have it. So we will have it Thursday night. I promise. And then what's next?
I think that's it. Throwback?
Oh, yeah.
Oh wait, Patreon. We want to give a special thanks to our Patreon supporters because we appreciate your monthly contributions that help us run these dank shows and our upcoming video series. We want to give a shout out to Jug Schumann and Shelby Johnson.
Yeah. Taryn, yes, you are correct. Episode 8. I apologize. So if you're watching, if you're on the quorum, it is 4 through 8. Sorry, my math keeps. Sorry, I keep forgetting we were doing 4 episodes per week because they are short, like 20-minute sitcom level episodes. All right, weekly throwback. I don't have the game here with me yet, but I scored a. For folks that are in the collecting community, you probably know, like it's some. Sorry, long story short, it drives me nuts when things go up. I can't stand it because when I know what it cost before and I see it go up, I'm just like, why? Gravity Rush 2. I've had it on PS4, but I hadn't had an opportunity to play the original because it was on PS Vita. I don't own a Vita system. And there was a special deal. Amazon ran a packaging deal to get Gravity Rush remastered out. But then they didn't make a ton of copies. So on the used market, it's like up there. But GameStop's had this weird, long story short, GameStop got some restock of it somehow that they're listing as used. It's a long thing. But I'm really excited to play the original Gravity Rush. Having played Gravity Rush 2, there's a really lot of fun dynamics of how you can manipulate gravity there in the game dynamic. Now, it can get a little repetitive toward the end. Gravity Rush 2 got a little old.
Rushed.
Yeah. So by the end, you're kind of like, okay, I'm done. I'm good. But yeah, I'm just kind of curious to compare because again, I never got to play the first one, so I'm kind of curious how I feel about it. So yeah, that would be my throwback.
Right on. I think I'm gonna say Shining Force, old RPG game on I think the Genesis.
Yeah.
Or Saturn. I can't remember.
I think it started Genesis. There was a Saturn release. It even made it all the way to PS2. I think it's Shining Force Neo.
I haven't played Neo, but I played the. So I didn't play it on the Genesis, but but years ago I had the what was it? A Sega Smash Pack CD, which came with like Sonic 2, Vector Man, Super Hang On, and some other stuff. Kid Chameleon. Which also included Shining Force. Really, really fun game. It's it's similar to how what's that game? How Fire Emblem plays in some aspects, but with not as many feature-packed type things and without the interpersonal character relationships. But that map graphic traversal. Turn-based combat kind of thing, where you can also level up people. A lot of fun. I enjoyed playing it a bunch as a kid. Later figured out, I played it enough to figure out how to min-max and all that razzmatazz, so it's a good time. But yeah, a really fun RPG. Probably, might, depending on how long your gaming sessions are, probably might take you like maybe half a day to finish, maybe a day. Depending on how long you'd like to sit down and play for. But real fun game, highly recommended.
Nice. All right.
Cool. Alrighty, folks. Thanks for watching us here on the Nerd Union. Thanks for checking out. Chilling out, Maxon.
yeah, make sure to smash that. Make sure to smash that subscribe button, and yeah, we'll see you next week.
Peace.